Well, good morning, friends and colleagues. Good to see you again today. Wanted to open up the Thursday, March 13th Homeless Initiative meeting. We're so pleased to have each and every one of you wonderful professionals here. It's a great day in Douglas County. I was coming in and my car I was like, where are my keys? I know I have my keys here somewhere. I'm like, it's Douglas County. I think we're okay. Plus the sheriff's here, so I think we're okay. I know a lot of people call us Mayberry, but in many respects, it still kind of feels like a big Mayberry, where we're a lot of friends and neighbors that really like each other. So just to introduce the Homeless Initiative, obviously we're having a lot of conversations as a county around our 2025 goals. Our point in time continues to be outstanding. Obviously with the ending of veteran homelessness and being really low on our unsheltered count still, the focus for us remains on the private sector. It's the businesses, it's the car camping, and how can we work really well with the big box stores, the Home Depots, the Planet Fitness, all those, King Soopers, Home Depot, Planet Fitness, Walmart, on how to eliminate that car camping. And really from a human-centric, compassionate standpoint, find a better place for people that may be struggling to get some shelter and get some support and some services. So I know our HEART team who's in the back, hey guys, thank you so much for all you do, the true heroes of our homeless initiative out there, interacting every day. So thank you so much for this great work. We did just put up a new sign off of Wildcat at the King Soopers up there in response to some active citizen complaints. But the most recent complaint I received was from an individual in Ravenna who has a couple of individuals that are unhoused that have said, look, I know my rights. And so they're camping on the Jeffco side. So I don't know, Jeff, if there's a way to maybe we collaborate with our commissioner colleagues in Jeffco, but we might ask our HEART team, how do they engage with those that are just over the line? But getting a couple of comments about that. Today we're going to do our legal update from the amazing Jeff Garcia. We'll talk a little bit with our Douglas County Housing Partnership. Artie, we get you 2 days in a row, which we like that. A couple days in a row. Goals update from Paulo Diaz. Thank you so much for being here. Our executive committee member update, and then of course HEART and public comment. So with that, what I might do, let's go around and do introductions briefly with us here in the room and then online. We'll start with our director of our public health department.
Okay, good morning, Mike Hill, public health director.
Good morning, Paulo Diaz, CEO, Family Tree.
Ellie Reynolds, CEO of Douglas County EDC.
Artie Lael, Deputy Director of Douglas County Housing Partnership.
Jason Gray, Town of Castle Rock Mayor.
Darren Weekly, Sheriff of Douglas County.
Good morning, Caroline Frizzell, Douglas County Communication and Public Affairs.
Good morning, Sasha Easton, Director, Arapahoe Douglas Works.
Dan Marlowe, Help and Hope Center.
Good morning, Erin White with Manor Resource Center.
Good to see you all. Mike Paulimus, The Rock.
Jeff Garcia, County Attorney.
Good morning, Ruby Richards, Director of the Department of Human Services.
Great. Abe Layden, County Commissioner.
Good morning, Jennifer Eby, Community Services.
Tiffany Marcito, HEART Team.
Jay Carpenter, Lone Tree Mayor Pro Tem, as well as Douglas County Community Foundation, dual purpose.
Man, you guys are awesome. Do we have any folks online that wanted to introduce themselves?
Raised hand.
Okay.
Anyone online to introduce themselves?
Okay. I see a bunch of little boxes, but in any respect, we're really glad that you're here with us and joining in. With that, we'll start with our legal update from Jeff Garcia.
Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner. I have a PowerPoint if we have that.
All right.
Nothing if not my visuals. So Commissioner Layden said some really good news about, the effectiveness of the program and everyone in this room. But the area that he wanted to sic his attorney on were two clear areas. Individuals still living in vehicles and the policies that are preventing us from having better partnerships. Let's move forward a little bit. One more. Yes, please. So frequently when something is said in the county, people take that as immediate action, or as Commissioner Layden likes to say, if you talk about painting the wall black, everyone thinks the wall's already black. And that's not the case. Really, we're talking about collaboration, how we can work together and get some of these initiatives moving, because we've done such a great job with the camping ban and reducing panhandling and the HEART team that we've kind of caught the low-hanging fruit, but we need to get the people now that still need our help and need to carve and cut those edges to make sure that we really do have a comprehensive program. So we're talking about our options. These are things that the board may have talked to me individually about, or people in this room may have said, hey, that's a good idea. Why don't we try to figure out if that's legal or how we can explore that? So let's move forward a little bit. The wall is not black. We are just talking. So living or camping in vehicles, we continue to see that in a problem. If we saw the survey, that still was an area where there was still a large portion of the people who are still homeless on the street were living in vehicles. So we have a few options that we are contemplating right now. We're talking about parking restriction on some oversized vehicles. We're talking about opting into overnight restrictions based on neighborhoods or HOAs, and then prohibiting overnight parking in county property. We can do all those things pretty much now. And on the county property side, we have a lot of property around the county, and we want to make sure that that property is being used appropriately. And there's a lot of lots that it's easy enough to camp in overnight. We want to make sure that people aren't doing that. Instead, they're seeking the resources of HEART or one of the people in this room. So there's some of the things that we're thinking about. Why don't we go forward one more slide? This room and everyone in it work together because we work together, and we're productive because we work together. And one of the things that we've seen, whether it's the HEART team or my office or someone reaching out to the commissioners, is that there are hurdles and roadblocks to businesses, especially large commercial businesses, from working with this group or the HEART team. A manager at a King Soopers or at a Home Depot where there might be panhandling or an encampment may want to work with us, but they have corporate policies that prevent them from doing that, which make it difficult when someone in Illinois is writing a policy for a store in Douglas County that says you can't help us or you can't work with this group to make sure that camping isn't occurring or panhandling isn't occurring. So we need to work on how to address those policies and how to educate people, not only in our own county, but across the United States in some corporate office, that we have an issue here and we want to make sure that we have the absolute best community we can have. So there are policies that we see with some of our businesses that permit panhandling on their property, or permit camping, or will not prosecute a minor crime. And we do not want our businesses to become known as a target. We don't want people to know that they can steal or live off of these policies. And we look on the internet, we look on Facebook, we look on, and there's a lot of people who have cell phones that share, the target in, I'm just naming one, Castle Rock doesn't prosecute, I'm not saying that, but the target somewhere does not prosecute shoplifting. Then people start shoplifting there, or the Home Depot permits a camping behind it, and then that becomes a place. So we need to work to get past those. It is at times very difficult to find those people, right? We may work with the assistant manager or manager, and they want to be helpful and they want to support our community, but they're not the one who gets to make the choice. And then when these decisions get out there in the community, there's a difference in expectation. The people in this room want to make sure people are getting help and getting to places where they can get support, where someone else may not have that same idea and may be looking at liability or the easiest things for their employees to deal with. So let's move forward one more. This is a challenging one, it really is. There are some legal things that we can do where we can heighten public nuisance. There are locations, and we've been approached by a group to discuss this, where failing to report a minor crime is illegal. And one of the thoughts we've had about that is if you're not failing to report a crime that's occurring, you're going to have options when it comes to the county seeking remedy. And that option could be maybe a fine, or maybe you need to put a sign up saying handouts don't help, right? And saying, you know, you're part of the solution instead of enabling a problem. So these are all things that we're thinking about. My office is always available. I know Commissioner Layden is exceptionally available. If you have ideas to address these two very critical problems, to continue to trim this problem down, I think it's important that you reach out to us. One more? Oh, that's it for me. Any questions, thoughts?
This is on. Any questions for Jeff, either in person or online? And I always like to reiterate, this is never a report out. We really want to get your input, your ideas, good, bad, or indifferent. If you tell us we're completely off base, we want to hear that. Or if you really like an idea, we'd like to hear that too. But anybody in the room on those items? Hi, well, we want to welcome our distinguished colleague from the town of Parker. And just as an aside, in addition to introducing Laura Hefta, thank you for being here. It is really very special for us to have our municipal representatives, having Lone Tree here and the mayor of Castle Rock, all of you. It's really meaningful for you to be here, so thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Layden. Mr. Garcia, how would you envision that happening, if you could give an example with a public business, maybe on this heightened public nuisance exception and criminal reporting requirement, just a real life example of, say, a big box store in Parker or anywhere else, and how should we approach them with this, and who should approach them?
Sure. So there's a couple ideas with that where there's two approaches, where it's a failure to report or a public nuisance, where if you're making it a unsafe or unpleasant place to be, we can address that through some state public nuisance laws. But from the failing to report, we've seen this in New Mexico, Ohio, and Texas are areas that have this, and it's where we have found that there is a pattern of not reporting crime. It's typically shoplifting, to be honest. And we were able to document that, and we approach them and say, hey, we have documentation that you're not reporting these crimes. It's becoming a problem for our community. If we continue to know about this and we are able to document this, then you have up to $1,000 fine. If you don't want that fine, then maybe you have the option, if you so inclined, to put up one of our signs.
Now that you're not, so you're kind of putting that back on the county, then the county would be the enforcer of that?
Well, I'm sorry.
So, go ahead.
No, it would be a county ordinance. I mean, if the town of Parker or if any area would like to have this kind of work, I'd be happy to work with your attorneys on what that might look like. We want that kind of cooperation. We want a single unified expectation across the county. So I'm only able, and the board's only able to adopt laws for unincorporated Douglas, but this could be put in place anywhere.
So you're thinking about that ordinance right now countywide, and that would be a countywide ordinance, and going to, say, a big box store, and then they would be paying that fine to the county, and the county would be negotiating with them in any particular town then.
I can't make a law for Parker.
Right.
So we would only be able to. So
you're going to want the cooperation of the town of Parker with the county on that.
That'd be great.
To create our own ordinance on that for public nuisance with the county's ordinance as well.
That would be ideal. So there would be that uniform expectation across the county, and then people aren't confused, businesses aren't confused. We have a lot of businesses that operate in multiple jurisdictions across the county, so that would be ideal. I'd be happy to work with Jamie or anyone on the program.
Thank you so much for that clarity.
Yeah.
And circling back, that's why we're really glad you're here. Historically, we've had such a great partnership with our municipalities. And, you know, people don't really notice boundaries. They don't necessarily know if they're in a different jurisdiction. We know that, but it would be great to have uniform policy throughout the county if it makes sense for your jurisdictions. Sheriff?
I also think it makes sense. We don't want a Douglas County deputy sheriff going into the city of Parker, city of Lone Tree, and with our uniform and not their own police department. So I think that's critical.
Yeah, absolutely, Sheriff.
Yeah, that's really important. And at the end of the day, it's going to be our heart teams, you know, on the ground, interacting, working with businesses, and they're doing a phenomenal job. But we want to really empower them with as many tools that they could possibly have, particularly in the private sector with the business community, so that there aren't any obstacles to getting good things done. I'll just share that at I guess the kickoff for the new judicial district, when we're swearing in judges and meeting with some new folks, the commissioners were approached by a group of concerned citizens. I believe they spoke with the sheriff as well, but their concern, and they had binders, ready to go, was that, you know, when they have been to some box stores, and I won't name them by name, there have been some experiences where people are loading up grocery carts and just walking out. I don't know how frequently that's occurring, and I would, defer to the sheriff on those public safety statistics, but we know it is happening on some level. And, many of these stores have a policy of just hands off. If somebody wants to walk out with a bunch of goods, just let them do that. Our perspective is we don't want anybody to take the role of law enforcement, get into a fight in the parking lot and start, doing something. We want to always call law enforcement, keep law enforcement involved. But if the policy is they're not even reporting the crime, really tough for Darren and his office to enforce our public safety measures if they're not reporting. So the request of the citizen is really for the county and our municipal colleagues to get more active on collaboration with law enforcement, so that if you see a crime being committed in your store, really encouraging them to reach out to law enforcement and report that crime. Sheriff, what would you add?
Yeah, 100%. Criminals talk. And so if they know that they can get away with their actions, they're coming back for more, and they're going to tell their friends. And so anytime we let something like that perpetuate within our communities, it's a detriment to our citizens.
That's a great point. Okay, any other questions or comments for Jeff? Ellie?
I was just going to say for the EDC, I think something that's been telling is we've been working with the Heart team, and they'll reach out if they have a hard time getting a hold of the owner of the, maybe it's a big box and it's usually a manager and not necessarily the owner. So they have very little authority. So we've tried to connect where we can on some of those, but we also recently had a lunch and learn where Tiffany presented with the team. And I think if we can extend those by maybe not necessarily doing lunch and learns to our organization, but more maybe a round table, so that we can figure out what the holes are. Because I think what was really helpful about that lunch and learn, and feel free to chime in here, but is that we found out that it maybe isn't the big box policy. Maybe it is, but that's a blanket policy. But a lot of times it's the landlord. And it's not necessary. And so I think what we found is everybody has been asking us to connect maybe the developer, but the developer is not the issue. It is truly the landlord in between and what their policies are. And also maybe there's some things that they can do around lighting or policies that they can set for that residence that would mirror our efforts here. So I think that was actually really helpful and kind of opened our eyes to be like, that might be what we need. And the best people to talk to landlords is, of course, the people that are renting from them. So if those businesses can reach out, which is what we did, is said, you're struggling with an issue. You've already tried to utilize the Heart team multiple times. We actually had an exact scenario where they've tried to engage, but there's only so much that can be done. The next step was to go to the landlord and make sure that their policies were mirroring what the county was doing. So I think that's also something we can keep working on, and making sure people know that they should be working also with their landlords.
Well, I just want to pause and really extend our gratitude to you, Ellie, in your role as CEO of our Douglas County EDC. And, one of my favorite things in my role is convening and bringing you together, because the expertise you have when you interact with our Heart team and open up those doors so that they can connect with the business community, that's huge. And the feedback I received from the Heart team is that those connections have been pretty helpful. So thank you for that. Tiffany, you guys are doing the work. What are the gaps that you guys are having information-wise, or hurdles that we can help you with?
Yeah, I definitely think that the lunch and learn was a great place to start. And I've actually been able to make some connections with the business community in Parker. So I'm waiting to establish a similar meeting with the Parker business community. So we're really excited about that. I had a couple navigators go around to businesses last month, and my numbers will reflect 14 business engagements. And they have the handouts don't help signs with them. They have the QR codes that Caroline made for us. So any businesses can be directed right to our business page if they wanted to order a sign, or if they want to get in touch with one of their law enforcement agencies to get a trespass letter on file. So I think Ellie is right. It's connecting with the right person. I think that's what we're struggling with the most. I mean, the managers in the stores, they're taking the signs, and Greg had let me know that one of them even put one of the signs up in the window. He didn't know if it was okay with the landlord or the actual owner of the property. He just did it. So I think it's just really getting the word out about Heart, what our mission is, what we're seeing around their property, because some people don't know. They open up at 8, but somebody could be camping in the back of their property at 6 a.m. So just educating the business owners what their rights are as, property owners or business owners or even staff, and what could help deter some of that activity around their property.
Yeah.
So I just think it's the connection piece that is the most difficult part.
Well, great. And again, thank you for the help with those connections. This is the big effort of 2025, I think, is the work with the business community and eliminating or addressing the car camping in a way that's compassionate but effective. Are you able to identify the specific hotspots in Douglas County where are you seeing it the most?
It's at the Walmarts. It's at the King Supers.
Like all the Walmarts, all the King Supers, are there particular?
Highlands Ranch Walmart, Parker Walmart, Castle Rock Walmart. And most of these individuals, they feel safer in their vehicles than at a shelter. That's what we're getting pretty much across the board. Douglas County is a safe place to be. There's, we have our wonderful sheriff's office and our local police departments that are on top of crime. And they feel that if they're putting themselves and their families into a shelter, excuse me, it's actually worse off than staying in their vehicles. So.
So, obviously as a native, we know how cold it can get, even in the spring. I was just chatting with Rand. We kind of giggle at the people that move to Colorado and they're like, hey, I'm going to plant some flowers in April. And then they just get that, right in the beginning of May. Ruby, for, in your role working with families that may be at risk, I worry about people that might think, oh, hey, I can just pull up in my car with my kids and my pets and spend the night. And, that seems, it could be really cold and really dangerous.
Agree. And our take usually is to try to figure out what options do they have? What do they have in the vehicle with them to stay warm? And what are the ages of the children that are with them, honestly? Looking at those younger ones that are more vulnerable, the safety of being wrapped up in blankets as an infant is dangerous also. So we kind of take the whole picture into consideration when trying to assist them and what to do. But we also hear the same thing, that they feel safer in their vehicle, they feel safe in the county in their vehicle, versus going to a shelter and having to go to a shelter in Denver or Arapahoe, which is full of a variety of folks.
Yeah. Well, it's that self-feeding loop that, it is a very safe county, and we invest more in public safety than any other county in the state. But then people talk, and so that will become a magnet to those that feel like, let's come here and maybe park overnight. Any additional thought from our municipalities around some of those issues?
I just had one other quick thing to say. So the metro region did have a safe parking initiative, but that has since gone away. So there's not a lot of referrals that we can make for people who want to continue to reside in their vehicles. So they're forced to just be, if they want to choose that lifestyle, they have no choice except to be on big box properties or in the parking lot. So that's another thing.
It's a good insight, Jay.
Yeah, so the city of Lone Tree is working on an ordinance mainly on the loss prevention side to Commissioner Layden's point of word gets around and everyone knows, oh, you can just go to Target and just walk out without paying. That's not safe for our consumers, for our residents, and also just not a good business model by any means. But I see some synergy in terms of the loss prevention side, shoplifting, as well as trespassing and wanting to provide resources. So maybe there's some connection there to address down the road.
Mayor Pro Tem, I think that's really, really helpful. And that's my district, that's my home city. I think the work that we're doing with Lone Tree is really significant. And I mean, let's be frank, that's where a lot of the retail and the big box and Park Meadows and the Home Depots are at. I think the work that you do, and this harkens back to the beginning of the homeless initiative, it really began in Lone Tree. I mean, it's that entry point where so many folks are finding themselves in that, that top area, right, is I-25 hits Lincoln. What additional work is Lone Tree doing? Are you noticing this same situation in particular areas?
No, we've had a significant drop in terms of panhandling for sure, and then the signage definitely helps. And so I think it's all about enforcement, but we brought up the point earlier where it's a manager of a store, the corporate policy might be one thing, they're following their corporate policy. That's why we're trying to find a local ordinance to override that. It's somewhat complicated, I understand, from legal, so we're working on that. But we've definitely seen a dramatic drop in terms of panhandling expression, and we come at it from the point of safety. Really, we don't want them in our meetings. It's not safe for them. It's not safe for anyone passing through the city. So we're trying to provide resources, and our police department does a great job of doing that as well. And certainly, HART is a component of that too.
Okay. Well, I think this will be do we have an additional comment?
Well, we do have an additional comment online. Katie Owens, who is with MDHI, connected to this conversation that Adams County has revamped their safe parking initiative. And she provided a link regarding that. So something we may want to take a look at.
Well,
Go ahead.
Hi, sorry, just whenever you're done, this is Maria.
No, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Commissioner. Hello, everyone. There's so much great stuff going on. This has been very informative and really, really good to hear about all the connections with the business communities, the landlords, trying to find these different routes to address these issues. One of the questions I had goes back to folks saying that they feel safer in their cars than in a shelter. And we hear that again and again, and we get it. One of the things this group has been really good about doing is getting data and helping people to understand what's going on. So I was just curious, do we have any information about the realities of safety in shelters? Are we able to say, I know that you feel like it would be not safe, but we have very low instances of XYZ concerns, and really just to correct that understanding, because as you said, Commissioner, it's not more safe to stay in a car and risk freezing and other violence and attracting other violence if there are shelter options. So is that fear misplaced? Let's get them connected. So that's really just my question / comment. Thank you.
I really like this. In high school, they voted me most likely to be a college professor. So I really do love teasing out the issues and trying to get to the systemic root of some of these problems. But that is my question. Are these individuals confused about what is happening in shelters? And then that's a really good point, Maria, but I'm also concerned about the length of time, because if our HART team still has hotel vouchers, it seems like that would be a much better, safer, warmer opportunity if it was for a day or two than spending the night in a cold car. So do we know, for people that are car camping, what's the length of time that they're spending in their vehicles?
I'm not sure that I do. Do you have any idea, Tiffany?
Well, I know the average length of time that somebody remains in Douglas County unhoused is about 7 days before they move on to either the next county for resources, or we actually were able to get them connected to some resource to help them with housing. But most of the individuals living in their vehicles have family in the areas in which they're staying at, or they have employment in those areas. So I'm just going to give an example. Highlands Ranch and Walmart. There's a gentleman sleeping in his car at the Walmart who just finished school and is now employed. So he's trying to save up money so he can get a place of his own. But as you know, things are very expensive here in Douglas, so he's just trying to save as much as he can so he can put a down payment on a place of his own. But most of the people in their cars have family in the area.
So how long has that gentleman been in his car, do you think?
Since December.
Wow. Wow.
And we do utilize our hotel vouchers. They're limited to 3 nights unless there's a cold weather emergency. And then we'll be able to extend that due to the extreme weather. But I mean, we've reached out to multiple nonprofits as well if we need to lengthen the stay of somebody's motel stay. So it's really just hoping to find creative solutions for the person so they don't have to be in a shelter if that's not what they want to choose. And most of the people have already had experience in a shelter, so they know what it's like in there and they don't want to go back.
That's fair. Well, I think that's the reason that the housing partnership, Artie and Maria, are going to be so instrumental in this homeless initiative, because that continuum of housing, creating opportunity. I mean, it is, what's the median income? Or what's the median housing price? Isn't it like $820,000 is the average cost? I mean, it's just wild. And then really glad that Sasha Easton is here, because connecting people to jobs is the best form of welfare. But sometimes even when you have a great job, you can't afford to be here. Jen?
One thing I would add related to Maria's question, I think that is a really good question for us to look into, because it is something that, we may be able to offer some insight for the person who is in a situation where they're considering whether or not they're going to go to a shelter. I think we have an excellent opportunity in the fact that we have City of Aurora and the operator of the Resource Navigation Campus coming next month. And so we can talk to them about, what they understand those kind of statistics around safety look like and what they're planning to do at the Aurora Resource Navigation Campus, just so we are more prepared when we're talking with people about, what that option actually could look like for them, and could be a little more proactive about it. So I appreciate Maria's comment, and it's something we should be considering. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. I'm really glad the sheriff's here, and obviously Mayor Gray is intimately aware of this issue. This community was not interested in putting up local shelters. We have less than 5% of the metro area's total homeless population. So us investing in infrastructure here didn't make sense to our community. And as a homeless initiative, we responded to that. But Sheriff, as you stepped out, one of the comments was made around having a safe parking space for folks, and that Adams County is reigniting their safe parking. Do you have any thoughts or insights on that?
I have some overall concerns. Walmart has a policy. They've always had a policy that people can park in their lots, whether they're in an RV traveling across the country or what have you. I would have concerns with having a parking lot designated for something like this due to concerns of drug use, of violence, of all kinds of things that could happen in that parking lot that our deputies or police officers are ultimately going to have to deal with. And so I think if you have a central hub of a group of individuals who may or may not be doing that, could be a problem. And there could be just a family that's using that parking lot to get them from one place to another, and due to no fault of their own, if there's somebody also in that lot who could be a drug user, sex offender, or something like that, I think there's a lot of problems that could come out of that. I'm speculating, but that's, from my experience, that's what could potentially happen.
Well, I agree with you 100%, and I'd be really curious to hear everybody's thoughts on that. But going back to the housing first concept, I was actually just in DC talking with HUD about that. They've had some real struggles with housing first. And we know that from a trauma-informed perspective, having shelter is the beginning, but we've always said we're housing plus. It's shelter plus wraparound services, case management, job counseling, mental health counseling, all those things. If you just give somebody a place, you are creating an opportunity for more issues and then potentially some public safety problems. So I would tend to agree with that. Does anybody else have any thoughts or opinions around those safe parking concepts?
I would agree with that. I think
Okay.
that ultimately when you create islands, it brings people. It's similar to the housing first model. If you become a housing first area, you draw and people know, and they, and that's really what the homelessness initiative has worked away from. I think all of the work that we've all done on the handouts don't help. Making a safe space is contradictory to that message. And so I would agree kind of with the sheriff and yourself that might not be the approach to have an island of, safe parking. I also think from, the EDC's perspective on behalf of businesses, I think that you would get real pushback on where that location would be. And you'd have to establish, where are those locations of safety and where are you going to put them and at whose expense?
Yeah. Well, and I keep hearing the name Walmart, and it sounds like Walmart has it. Does anybody know specifically what their policy is?
Sorry, we've been trying to work with all of the big box. Once again, it's really more of the landlords than it is. Of course, Walmart has the policy. And the other big piece, and I'm sure Tiffany could, I keep going back because we just had this conversation, but it's also, quite frankly, the safety of the lights and 24-hour activity as well. So those are businesses that are always going to draw because of that, because they feel safety under the bright light, right?
Okay, well, more to come on this. I think Jeff made a great presentation around what a countywide and maybe in partnership with the municipalities, what a countywide policy might look like if we talked about finer sign and just trying to, again, nip that in the bud before it becomes a bigger problem. Anything else on this issue? Okay, well, let's move on to our Douglas County Housing Partnership. Artie, take it away.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning. I am Artie Lale, the Deputy Director of the Douglas County Housing Partnership, and we are the public housing authority for Douglas County, the city of Lone Tree, the city of Castle Pines, town of Parker, and of course the town of Castle Rock. Go ahead. So our role in the continuum of care of homelessness is sort of the end game. We provide permanent housing, and our collaboration with our nonprofit partners and our municipal and county partners puts us in a position where we try to bring our resources to them in that transition period from shelter through a transitional housing period into our permanent units. If you'll hit that. Housing instability for anybody is itself on a continuum. There's a high demand due to underproduction and depleted housing supply, an increase in cost, the loss of affordability, and this then turns families into having cost burdens, which then leads to mental and physical and other health issues and creates instability, which then gets exacerbated by eviction and then foreclosure and then homelessness. It becomes this vicious cycle. There's always a phrase that everyone's, 3 paychecks away from being homeless. That's not untrue, unfortunately. Next slide. As far as Colorado's concerned, the cost of housing here, and this is based on rental, and this is the 2024 out of reach report that came out, says that we are ranked 8th in terms of least affordable. It would require the most amount, 8th most amount of salary to get into housing here in the state of Colorado. In Douglas County, so in the state of Colorado, you would need to make $37.47 per hour to afford the average rent. In Douglas County, it's $42.33 an hour. So fairly significant salary. $80,000+ a year gets you a 2-bedroom apartment. Next slide. So what does our housing need? Well, the Denver Regional Council of Governments underwent a housing needs assessment, and they looked at the continuum, not just low-income housing and supportive housing, but housing at all income levels. And these are the statistics that they came up with for the 10-year housing need for the various municipalities in unincorporated Douglas County. And you can see the different slices. Obviously, there's a high need for 0 to 30% income households to have affordable housing, but there's still a need for those at 120% AMI. And the difference is 0 to 30, obviously zero income, but 30% income is a person who is strictly on Social Security or Social Security disability income. And we have quite a number of seniors and quite a number of disabled folks that live in Douglas County. And that thus the high number of the 0 to 30 in that category. And then of course, the middle income, the build outs, the pricing of housing, as Commissioner Layden pointed out, the average home sells in Douglas County for just north of $800,000. That is not attainable for somebody at 120% of the area median income. So just to put that in perspective, that would be if you had a household of 4, that is an income of almost $150,000 a year. You can't afford the median purchase price in Douglas County at that price. So what do we do? Next slide. We start tackling the cost of housing. That's the biggest thing that the Douglas County Housing Partnership has been working on for the last decade. If you just look, the average rent price in Douglas County right now is $2,088. That's a 28% increase from 2019. So just before the pandemic to now, 5 years, we've seen an increase in rents almost 30%. The affordable rents at 60% AMI, and folks that make 60% of the area median income are like teachers, municipal workers, county workers. Some of these folks reside in ours and our partners' properties because we can charge $1,761 and get those, what we would consider almost market rate tenants into our units. There's a total of 2,279 units in Douglas County at that 60% AMI rent. And just to kind of, again, put the salaries in comparison, to qualify for that unit, you have to make at least $3,500 a month and no more than about $4,500 a month. But there's a lot of folks in Douglas County that fall between that income category. And again, it's the folks that are, you know, our own children. Both of my kids would qualify at that income level right now. They're both just starting their lives and their careers. Next slide. For people age 65 and above, the average Social Security benefit, and this is statewide, this is not Douglas County specific, is $967 a month. That's the average. This is why for seniors, senior housing is critically important, and at those lower AMIs, those 30% units I talk about. Now, as a development company, I can tell you that it is very difficult to develop a unit that you can rent as low as $733 a month because of the cost of development between the actual dollars and cents to pay for the contracting and the actual development itself, not to mention impact fees, the cost of land, and of course, and this is nothing new in Colorado, the cost of water. Those things add up very quickly. And so in order for us to develop a 30% unit, we have to develop more of the 60% units. But as you saw in 2 slides ago, the need is in those 0 to 30s. This is where our seniors and our disabled population need the rents. We are very proud of our Unity on Park Street project because with generous contributions from the county, we were able to naturally, without any kind of fancy financing, get the rents down to that 733 level for better than a fourth of the units. And that really helped the population that we were intending to serve, which is adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities who fall into that average Social Security benefit category. Mm-hmm. So we were able to bring that crowd in, and we're going to do it again with Tall Tales Ranch in a couple of years. So then just again, monthly, this person must make between, almost 1,500 and no more than 2,300. And that is typically what we're seeing is they're going to get their Social Security benefits, and then they're going to work a part-time job. Especially if you are a person with disabilities, that's about the best you can hope for in most days, unless, of course, you have other resources like family. But they don't all. So this is where it's critically important that we develop that kind of unit. We do operate housing choice vouchers. This is a great solution for that 0 to 30% problem, but it is highly underfunded by the federal government. Douglas County itself doesn't receive vouchers. Congress has not seen fit to authorize new vouchers to new housing authorities since 1996. That's a very long time. Our housing authority didn't exist until 2003, so we didn't get our own share. But the state contracts us and we get a share of theirs. We currently operate 91 state controlled vouchers, and we have 91 people on our Douglas County wait list as well. Almost 70% of the folks that receive those vouchers are either disabled or seniors or both. Only just about 30% are families who may have a special needs child, or there's history of mental illness in the family that is restricting their ability to succeed income-wise. I would venture to say out of the 91, 90% of them are absolutely the people you would want to see have those vouchers, because they have no other means and no other track forward to get into housing without them. And the housing choice vouchers are an amazing tool for this, because if we don't have units available, the voucher can go anywhere. And we have more than 60 local landlords that are for-profit landlords that will accept these vouchers and have moved our tenants in, and they've enjoyed the program thoroughly. I deal with all the complaints. I get maybe a dozen. I'm very, very proud of this program and the way we operate it here in Douglas County. Next slide. So workforce and affordable housing, that is a picture of our Oakwood Senior Project. That property is located in Castle Rock, just south of Douglas County High School. And that building itself houses 53 units of affordable senior housing. I'm sorry, 56 units of affordable senior housing. And it's adjacent to our older Oakwood apartments that have 53 other units. Total, between what we own and operate and who we partner with. And we partner with some large for-profit developers like Shea Properties, Coble and Company, Ulysses Development Group. These companies take roughly anywhere from 1/4 to 50% of their portfolio and build it out as affordable housing, because they too are firm believers in the continuum of housing as housing developers. Plus, they do see the value in having a diverse portfolio as a business. Between those partnerships and the units that we own, we're involved with 2,102 total units throughout the county. There's a total of 2,912 income-aligned units in Douglas County. The other roughly 800 units that we don't have partnerships with were built before we existed. 2,279 of those units, as I mentioned earlier, are at 60%, 163 at 30, and the rest in the middle hit 50s and 40s. And we're just trying to hit all categories of income and try to create rents that model out. But as you can see, it's much more heavily on the 60% side, even though we need more 30s. We do need more 60s, but by ratio. Next slide, please. So here's some examples of what's coming up. We have 2 senior and 1 workforce project that are currently under construction. Ridgegate Senior Affordable Apartments in the Ridgegate area of Lone Tree, along inside the couplet along Ridgegate Parkway. The Sophia Apartments in Meridian Business Park. You can actually see this one from Lincoln. It's adjacent to what they call Gazebo Park in Meridian, if you're familiar with that area. Both of those are senior. 101 at Ridgegate and 158 units at the Sophia. Ridgegate is being developed by Coble and Company with our partnership, and the Sophia with Shea Properties and our partnership. And in the center is Ponderosa Pines. This is a workforce housing project that will be under construction before year's end. We're just finishing up getting the financing aligned on that one, as well as dealing with getting the building plans submitted and approved by the county. All three of these are going to be stellar, amazing communities, and will add to our total portfolio of housing and start feeding the need. We also have an additional, besides these three projects, 700 plus units that are in concept or in preliminary planning and financing stages within the county and its municipalities. Next slide, please. We also provide programming, and these programs are what is our link to the community. It keeps some folks stable. Two of these programs for stability are our foreclosure mitigation counseling and our reverse mortgage counseling. For foreclosure mitigation, as I said earlier, you're 3 paychecks away from being homeless. If you are a homeowner and you run into hardships like medical issues or unemployment, it's sometimes difficult to negotiate terms with your lender to try to stay in the home until you can get back on your feet. There are laws in place that protect our homeowners and encourage mortgage lenders to negotiate with them on what they call loan modifications. As part of that, then we provide budget, credit counseling, and connect them to the varying resources in this room, including the Workforce Center, to try to get them back on their feet quickly so that they once again can be effective and responsible homeowners. Reverse mortgage counseling is for seniors 62 plus. It allows them to access their equity investment without selling their home. It helps them to age in place. It's a financial tool in the toolbox. It is heavily regulated, and one of those regulations requires that they receive intensive counseling from a housing authority, which we provide that service. It's a tool that's not for every single senior, but roughly 50% of the people that inquire about it, and we provide that service for free with a subsidy from the federal government. When they come and ask about it and we explain it to them, about 50% will say this is the right answer for me, and they'll take that reverse mortgage. Next slide. And one of the biggest drivers that is helping us in development is Proposition 123, and we are very grateful to our county and municipal partners for all opting into this program, as well as executing an intergovernmental agreement for collaboration, so that as we build out and utilize Prop 123 funding, which was authorized by a vote of the people of Colorado, that we are doing it responsibly with local needs in mind. And thus far, we've built out 330 units on our goal of over 1,000. And as I mentioned, we have 3 projects in the works and another 700 units behind it. If all goes well, we will hit our goal. And along the way to hit this goal, we've received over $9 million in Prop 123 funding as a collaborative, which I believe puts us in second place overall in the state of Colorado for most dollars received, and more dollars to come. We have an application in right now for an additional $4 million that would put us over the top. So we're very, again, proud of the fact that this partnership, this collaboration, and has given us and our partners significant access to significant resources to help build out these projects. Next slide. So this is my last slide, just a kind of a rundown again of the types of assistance we offer. So counseling, actual housing that we can provide, and then of course we're a development company that supports other developers as well. And that's why I say we're kind of at the end of the continuum. If they come out of shelter, we can help them with some transitional units that we provide as part of the DC Cares program. But we also work with all of our partners to take clients that are ready for permanent housing and get them housed. Any questions?
Great presentation, Artie. Appreciate that. Any questions for Artie? Yeah, Mayor.
I don't have a question, just a comment. I mean, first, great presentation, but second is over the last 7 years, I'm not sure how many times I've called Artie or Miss Chiano, and over again about somebody like, hey, I have a phone number for you. And they're so great about getting in touch with somebody that as I have somebody who needs help, you know, they're either losing their place or they need a place or they need assistance. And they've been so great about it. I just really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, Mayor, what I've come to learn about you over 7 years is you are really great at connecting your citizens to help. So thank you for all that great work. And Artie, oh my goodness, I mean, every time I go to Unity on Park, it's just, I think I well up. My heart gets like 3 times bigger. So it's very exciting to see that. You know, demographically, we're always told that we're aging in place. I'm trying to avoid that at all costs. You know, I think about people like me that had kids, 20 years ago. And so many of our citizens are living in these homes that are, 5,000, 10,000 square foot places that are now empty. Are you seeing a demographic trend with regard to those, middle-aged and older adults? And are our younger people coming back to live with? How are those spaces being utilized?
So anecdotally, as we've been building out more and more senior housing, I'm seeing the need being filled. And I will tell you, I live in Perry Park. My next door neighbor was just talking to me 2 days ago and said, I think it's time for us to move. We're going to probably sell this summer. And I said, oh, really? And I said, where are you going to move to? And she says, well, we need something simpler. And, we have good assets, but we're just down to Social Security for income. We were looking at this new place in Castle Rock. And I said, the Meadowmark, which we just developed with Ulysses Development Group. She goes, yes. I said, I know they still have some openings. You should go there right now while they're doing their lease ups. And so we're hitting all the demographics. I mean, Douglas County's seniors have by and large done very well with their resources, their assets, and their real estate. But just like every other senior, including my own parents, Social Security does not pay great. And so when you're on that fixed income and you only have a little bit of a 401k or some IRAs to play with, affordable housing actually becomes an important solution, especially as they're aging, where they can no longer handle, stairs or like where I live in Perry Park, hills. So it's important that we continue to develop these senior housing resources because even at that 60% level, they're very much needed. So there's some real time data for you.
So seniors are downsizing. They're not necessarily expanding.
No.
Within their.
For a long time, we were seeing a big push in the reverse mortgage arena.
Yeah.
That probably tempered a little bit by interest rates having risen a lot in the last several years, even though they're dropping a little bit this year. Kind of dissuaded people from wanting to borrow against that equity. Meanwhile, equities have increased across the board in Douglas County year over year. And even though last year we saw marginal increases, we did not see major plummets. So housing in Douglas County is now pretty stable. People are trying to access that equity, but they're also recognizing that 5,000 square feet is too much house for a couple or a widow. And they are looking for these affordable housing options more and more.
Interesting.
And that, I would add, is certainly what we heard through the Older Adult Initiative. Pretty much everywhere we went, we heard from older adults that were in a situation where they would like to see additional kind of housing stock that would allow them to downsize without it costing them more to do that. Because when they are in a situation where they need to sell and they want to get into a ranch, that's accessible for them and workable, they can access services, all those types of things. Those are all, we have a low amount and a high premium for those. So they are going for a higher cost, and it's quite expensive for people to do that, is what they're finding. So I'm not surprised at all to hear the story that Artie is sharing, that is something that I heard time and time again during those meetings.
Yeah, with the Older Adults Initiative.
We
Wow,
also-
really, did you have something, Ruby? Yeah.
Just wanted to add a comment that I agree with you with the 3 paychecks away. I mean, even in child welfare, we always say you're a one bad catastrophe, right? A medical issue, a bad car accident or something like that. And then it just spirals. It's all kinds of problems result.
I was going to say, Commissioner, I think what we've found too is specifically for Highlands Ranch, which is really struggling with this issue that you're talking about, is that there's this missing middle problem too. So while we are solving, maybe on the affordable side, what they're really looking for is to get out of that home, use that big nest egg that they've got from all that equity and put it in a 55 and up community that will have an apartment or condo situation that just is not existing in the county right now.
We are working with a couple of developers near Highlands Ranch on solutions for that. The biggest hurdle and the biggest impediment still remains the state's liability and insurance laws as it relates to the development of condos.
Yeah.
We just can't get the condos priced right to where you can sell and have that equity to downsize appropriately, because they're going to end up spending 100% or 80% of their capital gains purchasing that next home, and that's what they're trying to avoid. So hopefully we come up with some more solutions in that arena, but that's unfortunately at the moment still a very difficult problem to solve. But we haven't given up, and as you know, I always tell you, I never lose.
That's right. I love that. Yeah, bane of my existence as a real estate attorney for a couple decades. I say condo conversions all day. That's got a pencil, but man, if people could just convert an apartment into a condo and buy a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, that is the building block of wealth, and maybe meets a lot of needs. But it's a conversation with a lot of stakeholders, especially our developers. Well, it's been a really robust discussion today. I'm going to try to move us along. We're really thankful to have Paulo Diaz from Goals with us today. Thank you so much for spending your time, and I hope it's a productive conversation, but let me turn it over to you.
Yeah, this has been great. Thank you guys for having me. As Commissioner said, I'm Paulo Diaz with Family Tree. I serve as a new CEO. Today's March 13th, so I guess, I started January 13th, so it's my 2-month anniversary, so I don't know if that's a thing, but I guess I'll celebrate with cake later today. So it's good to be down here. Thank you guys for having me. Actually, I live in the Commerce City, Brighton part of town, so like 10, 15 minutes northwest of the airport. And yet this is my second time in Castle Rock in like the last 4 or 5 days. I was here for a lacrosse tournament this past Sunday. So the tolls are starting to get me, which helping boost the economy, I guess, is the best way to look at it. So just a little bit about myself, and then we'll jump into the presentation just because you guys will be stuck with me moving forward, which I hope is a good thing for all of us. Prior to joining the Family Tree team, I worked in Adams County for about 6.5 years, working on their poverty and homelessness initiatives. So I know that there were some conversations earlier on Adams County. I wish I could have chimed in on that just because but I can't speak towards what they're doing now, obviously. And before that, I worked in both the nonprofit sector for about 14, 15 years, as well as having served on city council over in Commerce City for a few years as well. And so with that, definitely understand and appreciate the work that local government certainly does. So thank you guys for having me here. So today I'll be speaking on the goals program. So I think Jennifer has that queued up. Thanks, Jennifer. Just to get a baseline understanding for those of you who are newer to the goals conversation, goals is our 2-generation approach, and the whole purpose of that is really to provide stability and support for families as they are establishing themselves. So goals stands for generational opportunities to achieve long-term success. I'm not much for acronyms, but I'm understanding that a lot of people are. So then we'll jump over to the next slide. Thank you. So for those who aren't as familiar with the 2-generation approach, it really is about working with both parents and children and providing them with the resources they need. So I alluded to that earlier. We do have Goals campus is actually located over in Aurora, and we do have some rooms and units that are available for Douglas County residents. So the families are offered a safe place to develop their long-term goals for stability. They work with a case manager, and I can talk a little bit about that shortly to talk more about that. And the whole purpose of that is their goal is to live there for up to 9 months. But really the average that we're now seeing is about 6 months before they do exit into safe and stable housing. We do follow up with the individuals, and so I'll show some more data a little bit as to what that success and those outcomes have looked like. And so each family that are residing in goals, they do work with a navigator, so they work with a case manager. And again, the 2-generation approaches, we're working with both the parents and the children. So with the parents, not only are they housed, but we're working with them on employment because we do have an AD work site, certainly over there. We work with them on other supports that they may need, connect them to benefits, things of that nature. With the children, we're working with them on early childhood. There's an early childhood facility over there on that particular campus, and working with them on any health things that they may need. And again, the whole purpose is to provide them with the supports that they need so they can exit for long-term positive outcomes. As far as the goals program itself, from July 1st, 2024 through February 28th, 100% of the, first of all, the program did open in 2019. So, but specifically this current fiscal year, 100% of the families who have exited have found safe and stable housing, which again is the ultimate goal of goals. We've seen, you guys can see the nights of shelter provided, just over 6,000. And as far as the families served, 76% of them are female single heads of household. Most of the families, as you guys can see, because we do focus on the employment side and helping them increase their income, have maintained or increased their income. And we're averaging about 3 members per household. Specifically for Douglas County, we launched a program just this past December, and we currently have 3 families there. 2 of the families moved in at the end of December, and the 3rd family did move into the shelter mid-February, so they've been there for a few weeks now. 2 of the families are single female head households, and they have maintained or increased their income, and the families there have school-age children and enrolled in school, because that's a big component of our program. So the way that the referrals do work is our goals team do work with the Douglas County team. They go through a by name list, they go through referrals. They do still have eligibility requirements. They have to be TANF eligible. They have to have kids in the household. They have to, I think the income is $75,000 or less. And so there are eligibility requirements to participate in this program. And so that's the basic gist of goals. And again, the whole purpose of this is to achieve stability. I share the outcomes with you guys and definitely would love to entertain the questions. I do realize that we were tight on time, so I was trying to cruise through it as much as I could, but happy to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Well, wonderful presentation. And we know this is the beginning of the conversation, not the end, so we're really thankful to have you join us and be part of this really important initiative. Any questions for Paolo? In terms of barriers to entry for Family Tree, I know that's sometimes a challenge when you have a family in need. What is the average length of time? And maybe you mentioned that for a family that maybe Heart encounters to be able to apply and then get accepted into goals.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly depends on availability. So with any of our shelters, sometimes there's a wait list, sometimes they're not. It certainly depends on the timing. But my understanding for this particular program is there are beds available.
Great. You guys hear that, Heart? Okay, great. That's wonderful. So we'll move on. Thank you again, Goals. We really appreciate it. To our executive committee member updates. So are there any updates from any of you with your respective organizations or anything related to the homeless initiative? Council member.
Justin Parker, we are relooking at the camping ban right now. Our legal team is reviewing that and deciding what to bring to council on that at this point in time. So I'll have more information later, but that is in progress right now.
Great. And you already have a camping ban, correct? You're just talking about the update?
Yes, we're looking at that from an aspect of enforcement and changes to it as well.
Wonderful.
On that. So the legal team may be in contact with Mr. Garcia on that at some point in time. And I will definitely bring back today to our legal team, Mr. Garcia's comments on an additional ordinance for public nuisance. Thank you. And I would also like to report that I don't know if the statistics are down for Parker, but I am happy to report that I have seen less individuals panhandling in Parker at all retail locations. So I don't know if Tiffany wants to add to that.
That's really helpful. Tiffany?
Yes, thank you. We have seen a decrease in panhandling as well, actually in all of the communities within Douglas County. But when we do come across somebody in Parker, we contact our code enforcement team in Parker to address the situation, and then also offer the individual resources if they want them. So yes, we have seen a decrease, and the panhandlers that have been there for quite some time, we've been able to work with them, build that rapport, and get them to a safer location. So that's great.
That's awesome. And just watching this in action for so many years, again, I know I've said it before, but I really want to thank our municipalities for just the open door to HART and for allowing HART to coordinate with your local law enforcement. And your chiefs are amazing. Your local law enforcement is awesome. They're very active participants with HART. And we really appreciate that coordination, particularly with our sheriff's office. So thank you. Any other executive committee member updates? Yes, sir.
Testing 1, 2, 3. There we go. Do have a fundraising update on behalf of Kirsten Swanson and Douglas County Community Foundation. So in the theme of HART, on Valentine's Day, we raised $600, and the current balance is just over $2,000 currently. So that's an update for this month.
That's great. And again, the whole idea with those signs is don't roll down your window and hand money out the door. Donate to the community foundation if you're feeling that heartfelt need to make a contribution, which we greatly appreciate.
Yes.
It's a good point. Any other updates from anybody? Yeah, Sasha.
I have a brief update. So we do have a hiring event coming up at the ACC STERM Collaboration Campus here in Castle Rock, and it'll be on April 3rd from 1 to 4 p.m. So if you're interested or would like to refer somebody, you could find the registration information on our website.
Great. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Okay, going once.
I think we may have one online.
Okay.
We may need to give it a second.
Good morning. Thank you. Hello, my name is Jason Johnson, and I am the new, maybe 2 weeks older than Paolo, Executive Director of the Metro Denver Homeless Initiative. I wanted to just take a moment to introduce myself. Katie and Sophia are online as well from MDHI. And I am sorry I can't be there in person to introduce myself. I look forward to a deep level of engagement with Douglas County and the Homeless Initiative. And anyway, thank you. Just wanted to make sure to introduce myself. Wasn't able to do that at the beginning of the meeting.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining us and welcome aboard. We're really thankful that you all are here and we look forward to a great partnership. Thank you for joining us. Any additional executive committee member updates? Okay, so last item is just the HART update.
Thank you,
Very
Commissioner.
important update, yes.
Yes, so we'll go ahead and move to that first slide. This is kind of our dashboard slide that we've been using lately. Just wanted to highlight that we enrolled 24 new clients into our HART program last month. We received 162 total referrals. 34 clients were exited, completed 14 business engagements, and we were able to present for the Douglas County Economic Development Corporation monthly luncheon. So thank you, Ellie, for allowing us to come and present to your fabulous business folks. Next slide is our success story. First of all, I wanted to introduce our newest HART deputy, Kyle Villamore. Kyle, if you want to raise your hand. We now have a full team deputy-wise, and we're currently hiring for our 5th navigator. So if anybody knows of a navigator, that would be great for our team. Please send them our way. But welcome to the team, Kyle. We're glad to have you. So our success story this month, our HART navigator, Katie, who's in the room as well, received a call on our HART hotline of a person hitchhiking on I-25 near Castle Rock. And her and Deputy Nick Hasman went over and made contact with the person. They were able to get them to a safer location so they could figure out what kind of services the individual needed. The individual was stuck here in Castle Rock due to a court hearing So we were able to get him a hotel room, and ultimately he wanted to get back to his family in New Mexico. So we were able to work and purchase him a Greyhound bus ticket so he was able to reconnect with his family the following day. So great, short, sweet, quick success story of a person that was in a desperate situation and needed to get back to family. So.
Well,
Great
let's
job,
pause.
Katie.
Great job. Welcome to, how about a big round of applause for our heart team welcoming Kyle and that great story. Yeah, huge welcome, Kyle. You're joining an amazing team, and Katie, that's a great story. I know all of you have really wonderful success stories, so thank you for that. And it's a good reminder to all of us. You know, we always said from the beginning, human first. We're not arresting our way out of homelessness. We're really, you all are building those human connections and relationships that are so important. So thank you. It's great.
And like I stated, we had 24 new enrollments last month, and compared to January where we had 40, definitely contribute that to our cold snap in the middle of January where we had some people seeking some safer housing options. And then February of last year, we had 27 new enrollments. So definitely on track through our Februaries. And then month over month for our enrollments, you can see on this slide here that it just is up and down. Each month is different. So next slide. And then households receiving one or more service. We had 46 households last month receiving one or more service. 53 in January and 29 last February. So definitely seeing an increase in services that are provided as well once we connect with people. And then services month over month. It's the third highest last month over the course of 12 months. So definitely making sure that people get connected to resources. So next slide. And then our locations by referrals that we receive, 32% Highlands Ranch, 24% Parker, Lone Tree 12%, Castle Rock 19, Castle Pines 8, Englewood 4, and Larkspur 1. And then the next slide shows us our exits from the HEART program. So we had 9% of those exit to permanent housing, 23% to temporary housing, 21% wished to go to an emergency shelter that they chose. 15% were exited due to no contact. And then 32% wished to remain homeless, but are no longer in Douglas County. They wish to remain homeless elsewhere. So that is what I have for today.
Wonderful. Great presentation. Any questions for Tiffany or the HEART team? Okay, well, we are back on time. Thank you so much for that. I will open it up for any public comment, either in the room or online. I've been advised that there is currently no one online, but if there is somebody, please just raise your hand and let us know. Otherwise, I'll open it up to anybody in the room. Okay, not seeing any public comment in the room. Going once, going twice online. Anybody online? Wow, well, we are really on time then. So I know that's great. Well, I will close this out just by saying those are remarkable statistics. And I know we often hear, well, Douglas County doesn't have a homeless problem. What are we doing? All of those hundreds of contacts you're making are the reason. You're out there doing the work and connecting with folks. And it is just so exciting to see all of you and the success that this group is having. Please enjoy the rest of your day on this sunny Thursday, whether it's in Douglas County or wherever your travels may take you. Enjoy the rest of your day.